We are going to talk about imposter syndrome, dun dun dun, today.
Dun,
Dun
dun.
dun. Like that music. We'll just give it a minute to let other people file in here virtually. But I'm very excited to have Kyle on today, who's become a very good friend of mine. I literally met Kyle last year, probably early last year, through a good friend of mine, Josh Trent, who runs Wellness Force. And the moment I talked to Kyle, I was like, okay, we're going to be just friends for life. This just has to happen.
Oh.
So, and everything unfolded from there, and all of the imposter syndrome issues. So
Oh yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
very excited to have him on. And I'm here in sunny San Diego, which is actually not so sunny today. And Kyle, where are you?
I'm in sunny, you can actually see out there, it's a little bit sunny, Seattle, where you're from.
How is it sunny in Seattle?
Oh, it's been sunny all week. It's been great. What are you talking
It's
about?
been stormy
San
here.
Diego. I'm going to San Diego.
It's been stormy here. People are freaking out. I'm seeing way more runners than usual. Yeah, San Diego just isn't the same right now. But you are, when are you moving down here?
Well, we'll see, right? Right now, times are a little uncertain, but we
Yeah.
have sold our house and everything, and we have to move out at the end of the month. But, we may spend the summer at my parents', which isn't a bad place to be on the water. So
Yeah, it sounds
we'll see.
really
They live in Washington too, so
okay.
might be the fall that we move there, but we'll see.
Okay. Well, we're ready for you when you decide to come down.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be there.
San Diego is ready for you.
Right on.
All right. So let's get this party started. I welcome to everyone that's on. We've got Dr. Kyle Bergquist here with me. We are live on Facebook too. We've got a webinar streaming. I am very excited to have my good friend on today because over the last 6 to 9 months, from the moment I met him through a veteran project I was working on. And lo and behold, he runs Clean Our Heroes Foundation and definitely wanted to be a part of that. But just the talk about how we can support veterans morphed into business ideas, coaching in business, and just having a good friend to talk to who's got, just similar interests, similar work ethic, similar visions, big dreams, someone who's doing big things, has done big things. And so I'm very honored to have Kyle as a good friend and someone who is a huge advocate to the population veterans that I'm also looking to stand for, and he also is one. So welcome, Dr. Kyle.
Thank you for having me.
From sunny Seattle. So tell us, if you can tell us a little bit about your background and just what you do as a profession, and we'll get into this imposter syndrome stuff in a little bit, but tell us a little bit about yourself and family.
Yeah, so you always start professionally, right? Like, who are you? Well, it's what I do. But I started with a sports med degree from Pepperdine in California. And I went on to do physical therapy and personal training for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got a chiropractic degree after that. And then moved home from California to Seattle to start practice, and practiced for about 7 or 8 years, just solo practice. And then got the idea that we could do more for patients by integrating our centers and bringing on PTs like yourself or MDs, anesthesiologists, nurse practitioners, you name it, and bringing them all in one house to help with pain. So we did that. We scaled to 9 centers, 120 employees at our height, 2 states, Washington and Alaska. And that ramp up then ramped back down as partners wanted to go separate ways and things like that. And about 2018, I actually started getting into documentary filmmaking around the veteran space. And we were trying to do regenerative medicine, stem cell treatments for combat veterans for things like TBI and CTE.
Mm-hmm.
And got some really good results there with a couple people, and found that the filmmaking was a passion of mine too, like being able to tell the story of what's actually going on, the good that people are doing. So did that for a couple years, and have in the last year gone back to more coaching and trying to lift up other providers and help them with their practices, and the things that I've gone through can hopefully be of service to them. So that's what I'm doing now with my company, Serving Impact.
Okay.
Is actually coaching clinic owners.
Yep, and we get to be one of those clinics.
Yeah, no, it's great working with you.
Awesome.
It's phenomenal. Doing amazing things.
Yeah, so that's awesome, Kyle. He's just telling you just a little bit, but the way that he runs Serving Impact, and then Healing Our Heroes is pretty incredible. So making you really think outside the box, and you want to do big things, he's your guy. Now, on to Imposter Syndrome. So,
yeah.
Now, Kyle and I get to talk a lot each week anyway, so we should actually start just filming our conversations.
Oh, for sure.
Yes, they're quite epic. But this topic, this conversation on imposter syndrome, I mean, he's been working on a book for a while called Imposter Syndrome and Your Judgment. So release your judgment and recover your life, which I just got on Kindle. It just came out. So everyone, yep, show us. Awesome. But I am actually really intrigued because it's not too often you get a leader in the health industry, in any community, actually like sharing vulnerably about their life. And I know from my experience doing that through my book, which had nothing to do with my profession, it was just my life and like something I knew I needed to share. Like it really opened me up to being more vulnerable with myself, my loved ones, other people. It helps other people open up. And imposter syndrome is kind of one of those things like not talked about a ton, because like who wants to actually admit that they feel like a fraud at times? But the reality is we all do at times. And when you really look inward and we start to become curious about why you feel a certain way about certain things or why you just don't feel good enough. And so Kyle is just in a completely open book friend, which I appreciate. It's one of a kind. And so Kyle, can you go into why imposter syndrome and a little bit about your life and this topic?
Yeah, thank you. So started writing the book about 2 years ago. Really just, I wanted to write down what was helping me once I understood what it was. And so I didn't even know it was a thing. So I'm at a CEO conference, and they keep mentioning this imposter syndrome. I'm like, that is super interesting, but what does it mean? I look it up and it couldn't have described me better. It was like, okay, do you ever feel fraudulent about your success? Do you ever feel like you didn't earn it, that it just happened to you? Do you ever feel like you're a player in somebody else's play, right? Like you're an actor in someone else's play. So I always had these things going on. It was the reason that like in school, I'd be scared to death to ask a question. Like I feel a lot more outgoing now. I would turn bright red, freak out because I'm like, oh God, I'm the only person that has this question and I'm such an idiot. And what am I doing in this school anyway? This school is better than I am. Like all these feelings were always there and I didn't know where they came from. So the book was about deep diving into my personal journey to fully understand it. And then like you said, and you did so well in your book, which is authentically tell that story. Like I think a lot of books in the space, especially with imposter syndrome, are saying, here's what it is, here's how you recognize it, all those sort of things. And we do some of that. Mm-hmm. But mine is like, I struggle with it. Like, here's my way that I've dealt with it. Here's my story of how it's held me back in my life. And every time, like, you're so kind to say, like, you want to do big things, talk to him. Like, I still hear those voices like, oh, that's not you. Like, who's she describing right now? That person sounds amazing. Like, that's not you. Yeah. So, So it still holds you back. But then, having different tools and different ways to center yourself in that and and own the successes is a big piece of it. So that's where it came from. I've done a lot of deep work, as you know, and we've had deeper conversations on whether through breath work or plant-based medicines or all these other things, I've been able to look at myself through a different lens and see where some of these things started. And there's a couple interesting stories that actually happened in childhood that have no bearing on my life now that I didn't understand, like made such an effect of how I perceive success. One quick story I'd like to tell.
One of those?
No, I'd love to tell you. Yeah, like one quick story is through breath work, I like had this clear vision of me being probably in my early teens, like 12, 13. And I was really good at baseball back then and was knocking the ball around the park. I was hitting everything. And I was at a game with a good friend of mine, and his parents were taking us home, and his grandparents had came from out of state to see him play. And we were all in one car going home, and he had just as good a game as I did, but they're showering me with compliments. And they're telling me like, oh man, you could be something, like you could be pro, like you're amazing, like and I remember it. And then I remember looking at my friend in the back seat with me and feeling his pain that they were showering me with the compliments. And so that morphed into like, ooh, don't shine too big. Don't shine too bright because you'll hurt somebody else. And so like that vision didn't come to me till like literally in the last year. And it was like, holy cow, that's been holding me back because of something like that. Like,
yeah,
you know, how ridiculous, but I didn't uncover it.
Right. Well, that's so in a lot of the personal development training I've done, there's these landmarks that happen in our life that kind of can change the trajectory of your thinking. Like, so that was one of those experiences. And while you've had great success, obviously that hasn't really held you back mentally though. It's probably caused a lot more turmoil in you than, you know, had you not had that experience. But it's amazing when you start to get curious about why you feel certain ways, like why don't I feel like I deserve this success, or why do I feel not good enough? Then you find that, wow, there are landmarks in my life where this happened, and since then I've felt this way. And now that you're aware of it, then you don't start blaming others or shaming others or even shaming yourself. Still can happen, but at least you're aware of it. And which is the key. And I think back at an experience, just to go off of that, a landmark for me was I played basketball. It was my family, we were giants. So playing basketball was, you do that. You play basketball. We had a basketball hoop tied to a tree in our yard. And the tree grew every year, clearly, so the basketball hoop also grew. But we had some mean games of 2-on-2 with my brothers and dad. But I remember, I think I was in 8th grade, and I didn't want to play on the varsity basketball team. Even though I made the varsity basketball team, I just didn't want to because I didn't like the girls on the team. Like, the girls weren't nice. And I wanted to play on the JV team because that's where my dad coached. My dad was coaching JV. I felt more comfortable. He was silly, and I had friends on that team. And I remember there was just a lot of, just rumors about me, why I didn't make the varsity team. Of course I made the varsity team. I just chose not to play on it. And I remember those rumors impacted me, like the way I was perceived by others. But then I also remember at the same time, I was like kind of getting obsessed with diet and nutrition and supplementation. Even though I wasn't taking that stuff, I was reading a lot of books about it from pharmaceutical companies. Anyway, my dad didn't really regulate that kind of reading for me. He was just like, oh, good, you're reading something healthy for you. But in one of the books, there's all these quotes from all these like sports stars. And one of them was Michael Jordan. And one of his quotes was, society only sees winners. That was the quote. Not super inspiring, right? But like, Michael Jordan's a very inspiring individual. However, that quote in that experience I was having at that time, I was like, oh, I have to be a winner. I have to play even if people don't like me. I have to win for people to notice me. So since then, that has been a landmark in the way I've lived my life too. And when I've had successes, there's always this feeling like, okay, what's the next win? And
Right.
now that I'm aware of it, like it's good, because then I can like regulate what I do. And I also know it's kind of like that inner DJ always reminding me of that memory, but I don't have to listen to the inner DJ.
No.
So yeah, so thank you for sharing that. And I guarantee anyone on this call or listening on Facebook Live right now, in all the personal development courses I've been in, everyone can relate to this. There's always something, right, that can hold you back or stop you, even with the quote unquote being very successful, because it can stop you mentally. It can stop you from really pushing for it. It can stop you in like really engaging in a relationship, like with your own wife or husband or your kids, right? It doesn't have to be around money. It's just like these things stop us. If I don't stop and smell the roses and take a moment to enjoy a win, and even if I don't win, what does that mean? I'm still a good person. I'm still Teresa. And is it really about won and loss? And this is another conversation for another day, Kyle. It's like, no, we're playing an infinite game. There's no wins and losses. We're in this forever.
That's right. Well, and when you realize how many people have it, right? Like I mean, estimated 2/3. I don't know what the other third is lying about, right. But it's like, if 2/3 of us in the room have it, then the others, I don't know what to say about them. But I do hear it coming up more and more often. I think people are talking about it more and more often. Mm-hmm. And when you hear people that you perceive a certain way discuss it, they struggle with it. I think that really helps too. Like, let me read a couple quotes, if you don't mind, please. Just from people that are, a little more famous than you or I. There's an actress named Awkwafina. Are you familiar with her? She was in Crazy Rich Asians, and she's been on SNL and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But her quote is, I'll always hate myself a little bit, maybe a little bit more every day. But I think a good amount of it is good to keep you on the ground, because you don't want to just be like, I'm winning.
That's good. Well, very practical.
It's so good. Yeah. And then the other one is Tina Fey, right?
Yeah,
you know her SNL actress. Yeah. So she says the beauty of imposter syndrome is you vacillate between extreme egomania and a complete feeling of I'm a fraud. Oh God, they're on to me. I'm a fraud.
I have heard
that is it. Right? Vacillate between the two. Like you push out and then you're like, oh God, they know. Oh God, they know.
Oh yeah, I actually, Tina Fey, when I was researching kind of things we could talk about on this, she came up because I'd heard that. Yeah. And like, that's totally relatable. I very much feel like that. Anytime I get up and talk, I'm like, right. Hopefully people won't find out.
Yeah, find out what? Like, oh, I'm not as qualified as I think I should be, or I'm not as, credentialed as I think I should be to be on this stage. There's always those things, right? So we address all that.
What, tell me a little bit about, so this imposter, because when we talk about the mind, right, like last week we had on Jim Cahill, who talked about the brain and the mind. They're separate. The mind is like, he considers it like a sixth sense. It's always there. It's kind of like the always already listening voice. It's the monkey mind.
Yeah. I called it an interview.
Yeah, and it has a negativity bias anyway. I think like research says upwards of 62%, there's a negativity bias of your mind, which it's helpful to know that information, because when you start to think negatively, especially right now, remember that's just what your mind wants to do. And so redirecting it. However, in just thinking about brain, mind being different, this imposter syndrome is like kind of an influx of the mind telling you, bringing up these landmarks in your life, reminding you that potentially you are a fraud, so stop talking, or you don't deserve that success, or what are you talking about? Someone else is talking about that. You don't deserve to talk about that.
All the facts.
You're a doctor. No, you're not a doctor. all of that. Like, how do you, Kyle, quiet that?
Oh man, great question. It starts first thing in the morning. First thing in the morning. And it is what I have found for me is self-care is everything. If I'm out of whack at all on my self-care routine that I've created that works for me, I'm in a spiral all day long,
Mm,
mentally, right? Then the voice gets louder, the amplification goes up, then I start listening to it, etc. But if I actually wake up, and here's my thing, I meditate for a half hour every single morning whenever I get up, between 6 and 7 normally. And it's the first thing I do because I'm trying to quiet my mind and set intention for the day and
mhm,
be in control of the day and being ahead of it. It's when I don't do that or things happen to me or I check my phone first thing I get up or whatever happens, I'm in reactive mode.
mhm.
Then my defenses are down and it can come in and it can ruin it for me. So for me, it's religious self-care. If I don't go running, like there's like a cue between my wife and I, like she could tell that the voices are talking to me, my attitude changes or something, and she'll just look at me and I'll be like, yeah, I gotta go run, don't I? Like that's a thing. Like I gotta process what I'm dealing with.
There's a
So
lot.
it's those sort of things for me, Teresa. I'm sure you have
Mhm.
your religious stuff there as well, but
So,
to me that's one of the
so you start your day off doing basically quieting the mind. So is your
Yep.
practice of meditation, is it guided or is it just how do you do your meditation?
I actually, well, here's full disclosure. I
Yeah.
actually do every morning in the bath,
Okay.
every morning,
Nice.
because I feel like there's
A warm
something to
place.
this mind. The water, right, is very calming and soothing.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's always there. And I use a Muse headband just because it allows me to focus in. I like the feedback of it. People don't know what that is. It's pretty cool technology. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's an app to it. When your mind is a little more still, you hear birds. So your goals, or if it's clouded, then it kind
Mm-hmm.
of sets up the background noise. So it's really good feedback that way for me.
Okay.
And so I've tracked, I don't know, I'm at like 4,000 or 5,000 minutes on that thing at this point. But I like seeing that I did it every day and then correlating, like, this is like the biohacker in me, I guess, but like seeing, oh, I missed that day and here was my mood. The
Right.
other thing I'm religious about, and you know this because you've hung out with me, is I won't leave a day until I have a gratitude journal picture.
Mm-hmm.
Something about that day that meant the world to me that I can be thankful for. Like being in that attitude of gratitude is critical too.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And there's a
that's
million.
awesome. Thank you for sharing. I didn't know meditation in the bath, a warm place. Yes. Sounds very soothing. I can't sit in my bathtub right now. Right now. No, I I've definitely meditated in a sauna before, which has been fun.
Yeah.
But mostly I meditate on our little play mat before my son gets up. So it's a
Yeah.
nice
That's
soft play mat, and either I can lay on it or sit on it. But what I like about it is, in just all the stuff I've done for my own mental health and physical health, is that you give yourself something in the morning to help you get started in your day. And it's like a physical, like even though meditation, we think it's neck up for neck up, it's actually calming the body, because we
yeah.
know neck up stuff can cause trauma that we hold from whatever is in the body. It manifests in our cells, manifests in tension, it can manifest in injuries. And so when you use a meditation practice, which is a mind-body connection tool, you're actually creating calm in the body, which helps slow the monkey mind and train it, because it needs to be trained. It's like anything else. It's like flexing of, training your biceps or training a pull-up. Like, to train your mind, it takes training. And so I find that practice, that's awesome, Kyle, that you do that. And then the other, like the gratitude journal, and then the physical outlet of running, or for me, it's lifting, not every day, but most days a week, even if it's something small, just moving for the kettlebell or picking up my son, who's very heavy. It's a physical way of releasing tension. Like even though running and lifting weights is creating tension, like the after effects of it is there's a parasympathetic aspect to it after you're done. And so those physical practices, even taking a picture and looking at it, looking at the faces, doing the meditation, doing the physical practice of running, are all helping train the monkey mind and are kind of patterns. I've found them to be pattern interrupts for, I think Adrienne Huffington talked about pattern interrupt. She's a big, obviously, mental health advocate. But this pattern interrupt is like, that's what those little things are. They interrupt the voice and tame the voice. And so that voice has a place, but you know that you can choose to listen to it or not. Like those practices help you do that. And I've found too, like the days I don't practice, and sleep is one of my practices, like getting really good sleep, or else that also can escalate the monkey mind. But those physical practices are paramount too, and for my well-being.
Oh, for sure.
And
I know we're time limited too, but to me, like, you just made me think of it. One of the biggest things I think we could do when we're feeling that voice amplify is not just that, like go work out or whatever, but it's also like change your focus. Like go work on somebody else. Like go actually dive into service of somebody else, right? Like that's why I love what we do with coaching, because it's like you can actually focus on somebody else's business and it automatically fills your cup because you feel better about your situation having helped that. It's amazing how that works.
Yep. So taking the attention off you.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and trying to lift somebody else up who may be struggling in what you were in. Just the act of trying to, inspire them by saying you're better than you think you are, or look what you're capable of, or look how great your business is, or look, look what you've accomplished, like takes you outside of you.
Right. Well, I would say that's something you're very good at, is uplifting others, Kyle. From the moment I met you last year to, I can't necessarily say that about everyone I've met, obviously, but you just stand out as someone who, like, that's your mission in life, is to hold other people up.
Thank you.
And so it's been a blessing to have you on this journey. I'm really excited for people to read your book, because dive into more of your stories and more of the research on imposter syndrome. So where can people find your book, first of all?
It's on Amazon.
Okay,
the book's never done, Teresa, you know that, I'm sure, putting yours out. And I flirted with publishing it, and but I ended up self-publishing it on Amazon. And so it's available. You can get it on Kindle, you can get it on you can get the paperback, which I'm holding in my hand right now.
Yes. Okay.
But yeah, it was even an act of imposter syndrome to put it out there, because I'm sure you had the same thing when you put your book out there. It's like, oh God, you're thinking of that one person that is either referenced or mentioned is gonna have and you're just people, how are they gonna do this? But it just to show people the cover again, just so they know what it looks like, because there's a few books on imposter syndrome. But they can go on there and get it. And I have myimpostersyndrome.com. Also that they can get it, or they can learn a little bit more, and we're going to be adding some course curriculum to that stuff too, because of the outpouring of like, okay, you told me what I got and I see how you dealt with it, but now can you give me some more structure? So we'll be working on that too.
Awesome. Well, I want to open it up so you all listening got a good idea of imposter syndrome, at least a taste of it, and like what are some things that Kyle has done to help quiet that voice, because we all have it. Which I think is a really good skill set that even if you haven't started until now is a good time as any to start. It doesn't have to be perfect, but does anyone have any questions for us before we jump off here? Anything at all on imposter syndrome for Dr. Kyle? You can leave them put them in the chat or the comment section. We'll wait a second. Kyle, so if people want to find out about Serving Impact or Healing Our Heroes, where can they go?
Yeah, great question. So servingimpact.com is our site where we help clinic owners, entrepreneurs, nonprofits, et cetera, with the operations around their business and actually creating their dream business that works for them. And the other nonprofit, Healing Our Heroes Foundation, is available at themissionafter.com.
Okay, themissionafter.com. Okay.
Yep.
And that's how I initially met Kyle, was through Healing Our Heroes. So, and is that, can you talk a little bit about that? So for any veterans that will be listening to this,
yeah,
or service members, like share a little bit about what Healing Our Heroes does.
Yeah, so, and there's a little imposter syndrome around that as well, as you know, and I've talked to you about, me not ever served in the military, but it's definitely a passion of mine to help these men and women with healing just in general, right? To be a conduit to that.
Yeah.
And it started with regenerative medicine and stem cell, where we thought we could do something good with that, but it's morphed into something bigger, you know, emotional healing, repurposing. We look at trying to build connection and purpose any way we possibly can. And the end result has been that we're able to partner with a lot of other nonprofits to actually highlight the good that they're doing and tell their story as well. Because there is a lot of good happening, but people just don't know that, right? And so through my documentary film work and the stuff that I've done, I've been able to actually highlight some of the good that these other organizations are doing, including yourself. And so, yeah, that's what we do. We are constantly looking for new and emerging therapies, treatments, modalities, businesses, et cetera, that empower veterans as opposed to the opposite of that.
Yeah. Well, it's needed. And what I like about Healing Our Heroes is that it's also, there's digital component to it. So it's not just, there's the resource for, so wherever you are, it can be a resource for you and your family. So thank you, Kyle. Well, without that, so it looks like we don't have any more comments coming in or questions. We've got where we can find Kyle. We've got his book. If you want to check it out. And then just think about my challenge to all of you listening and who will listen to this is think about where this voice of imposter syndrome can kind of get into your life, infect your life really, and start to get curious about it. And think of physical well-being, self-care actions like we talked about today that you can start to infuse into your life to help you with that. Because the more practice you do it, it's not like a pill, it's a process. So that ability to start practicing now creates compound interest of like quieting that voice and learning when it can have its say and when it can't. So thank you so much, Kyle, for your time.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm so excited to be on here. Thank you.
And everyone have a wonderful day wherever you are.